Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Coordinated. So this is the first episode we are recording after DevCon. So all the previous six episodes you will see we have recorded IRL with all the like various ABSs, IGL people, like all in real time. Like today we have Altan. I think is founder of Nuffle Labs or China for Nuffle Waffle in whatever way you know. Uh, I just before starting, I'll just want to give Altan a kudos because he played a crucial role and he helped a lot to start of the podcast because initial few great connections like YQ Ismail all came through him, and that is where this idea materialized. Like without me talking any further things about him, I like Aldan to like give an intro, basically how you like came into crypto and you have a very big background in near like crypto near and what eventually like led you to start Enough Labs.
Yeah, I can give my intro. I'm Altan, one of the founders of Nuffle. Um, give you a bit of I grew up in Turkey, so that's how my story started. Um, was always interested in computers. I was, pretty much like downloading things when I was 3, 4, and that kept going up until like I was 16, 17. When I started writing my first programs. That studied computer science and math. I was really interested in the concept of simulation. And that at that time in 2017, 2018 came with virtual reality. I published a couple of papers in avatar research. And when I started that, obviously you build virtual worlds. That was quite interesting. And when I graduated in 2021 after my master's, doing a couple of work in like deep learning, which I explored some like simulation stuff, crypto was taking off, and the concept of like being able to deploy smart contracts, or, to read them from blockchain was super interesting to me. And that's how I started. I started hacking in a couple of hackathons, and just a bunch of ETH hackathons and Solana and Near, and landed on Near because of the Rust, like the Rust language being the programming language on its own. It was pretty fun to write contracts, and saw that Rust as a programming language is not only limited to crypto, but in general is one of the most widely used distributed computing um, sort of programming languages, and started working Near in 2022, where we led bunch of initiatives, including Near DA last year that came from the Nuffle team, but also while we were exploring sort of obviously DA is an easy problem to solve on Near, and we started going into tangent where like there's this rollup centric world. There's like 1,000 rollups. How do we connect them? And that's how like Nuffle started on EigenLayer. We're the builders of one of the first ABSs, which is called the Nuffle Fast Finale layer, that allows you to quickly move liquidity between chains in 3 to 4 seconds. But while doing that, we saw this other need where a couple of folks asked us, like, how do I put Near into your ABS? And the UX for that is quite complicated. Like you have to go through user bridge, and then go to Ethereum, and then you take your asset, and then you restake that on EigenLayer. So it involves a couple of different steps, and we were like, why would we allow people to kind of like do this natively on the chain? Uh, so that's what we're focusing right now, is to use like the fast finale layer to allow stakers from anywhere to stake to EigenLayer.
Hmm. I want to know a little bit in more depth, basically, like how the so you were in a team of like a few in Near Labs. I was reading earlier like an article where the like a transition story, like how the like a very small team in Near spun out of Nuffle. So if you can just take us through that journey, that the team structure and what exactly like made you guys spun out of Nuffle from Near, basically.
Yeah, we're four founders. So it quite happened naturally. Like I wanted to be a founder back in February, and it was quite amazing. Like I had already had a couple of friends that, or like mentors, that wanted to be the basically backing or supporting of my venture. And when I went to Ilya was very supportive, as and he was always like wants people to kind of start companies. And he gave me the kind of the direction where like, hey, there's the AI things taking off on Near. That was March because I was pushing that quite heavily. And there was also this idea of, like we've been doing this work for a while for the Ethereum ecosystem. Why don't we kind of create a separate entity for that? So that's how the team came along. The three other founders also came from like Near Foundation, which is where I used to be. Also Pagoda, which is the Near Labs team. So the CTO Frat, and we have, we have a fourth member who we call like distinguished engineer, because his job is to kind of create ideas and implement very fast. So we're a team of 10 currently, distributed all over the place, like from the US to Europe. So quite nice. Like I really like this very small, nimble team, because one of the things that we look for is like, Near is a big team. Like if you want to take initiatives and kind of move fast, like it is quite hard because it's already an established L1. But with this, we can like move fast and kind of ship. So that was kind of the decision. Like it started very natural in a way, but also evolved to be like structured over time, with Near Foundation. And Near Foundation has been like super supportive, as well as like Electric Capital, who has been our first, who has been our like seed investor.
I think this like gave us the like a structure of the like come from a company perspective. I just want to know a little bit about the technical perspective as well. Like Near is mainly a like L1, which like has a AI centric or an abstracted roadmap. I like to know what was the need to create a DA layer for Near. That's number one,
Mhm.
and also the fast finality layer. Like I think before Nuffle finality layer, it was called a Near finality layer or super finality layer, something like that.
Mhm.
So like how these two things like they came into the Near research or something like that.
Yeah, so this was last year August, where we were seeing a lot of. So we studied the launch of Base, and Base was quite successful at the time. So we formed a thesis internally where there's going to be a lot of layer twos. We've seen this already with L1s like Cosmos. I think there's a frameworks ready for launching L2s. There was already RAST like global service providers being created, and um, the thing with DA is like every L1 creates its own DA. The reason for that is there needs to be a place where you store the sequence of transactions, and you need to take them and sort of execute them. That's what validators do. And Near, by its nature, back in 2020, actually talked about this in a white paper. Ilya and Alex built that. And then when we started doing testings on kind of like pushing blobs onto Near with a kind of a small trick, is that we saw that there's this bunch of, there's almost like $1 billion more. There's actually more now. I would say like $3-4 billion of value that is like securing the chain. So it's pretty decentralized in a way, and pretty strong from an economic standpoint. Uh, and we were like, why don't we just like try to push some blobs there? We hacked that in almost like a week or two and shipped it in mainnet in like around 1 or 2 months, um, which was quite successful. So the A side is it already existed, and we had to kind of like expose that to rollups. But fast finality happened in a way like we met Shuram. Shuram's been like very inspiring for us. And one of the things that I saw as an L1 builder is that like it takes a lot of time to bootstrap your own validator set. You pay your validators quite high fees, and like if we were to build a infrastructure that allows you to move between different chains, like why not? Why build a new L1 or use Near? Why not just like if you're doing Ethereum rollups, just take some security from ETH and use Near because it's cheap to store blobs, and kind of combine that to get a solution that is allowing you to move between chains fast. Um, so you can also use this as a settlement there. Like I think like that's what Movement is trying to do, which is essentially just use that cryptoeconomic security to like settle, which becomes a side chain really. But for us is like it was been powering applications, and one of the applications we're building is like stake from anywhere. Um, so that's kind of how it came along. Like it was more like I saw a problem, which is like DA, and I started to see a larger problem, which was fast finality. So like let's build that, and that's already built on top of Near DA. Like so, it's like more like an evolution of the same product, but going from very general to like almost very specific, just to show a use case, and that also benefits the EigenLayer ecosystem.
So before like going forward, like how the transition from near to eigenlayer happens, I want to clarify one my kind of question. We need faster finality basically for like faster transaction confirmation. Is it like that, or what exactly happens in the faster finality layer? You can share that.
So the way it works is that like you obviously every rollup has a sequencer, right? That means there is like a sequence of transactions that is already being posted or like been executed. So we take that for people that using near DA, it's already lives on near. But for folks that don't use near DA, we take that sequence and pretty much dump it to near DA. That is where the consensus happens, and the job of an AVS is to take the operator's job basically is to take the sequence, run a full node, or like go to Infura and get the latest block header, which is like where the blocks are, and say that this is the by executing the same thing, say that this is going to be the state of that rollup before it settles down to Ethereum. So then you get like you can get the state of arb, like any L2 really, and then use that sort of like state to build like fast applications. You can build like a question lending platform, question DEX, but for us, like we use that to kind of do something else, which is like I'm gonna stake from the L2 that already finalizes. I'm gonna push that to Ethereum L1 and say that the stake has been done on the L2 side, and EigenLayer accepts that. So it's a pretty simplistic architecture. Like it's the most vanilla you can create, but it helps us kind of like where we started and eventually kind of improve over time.
Uh, Another thing on the DA front, I think there are. I'm not seeing near the novel community pushing the DA thing that much. I think mainly because I just heard Ethereum is coming up, with its own mega DA in a few years, or Eigen Day is also like very popular in that way. Like they're claiming super high DPS or like 15 MB per second, something like that. Want to know like how what do you think that near or Nuffle DA and the FFL layer in comparison to all these other DAs?
Yeah, like I think there's a solved problem. It's not really interesting for us as a team. Like we near solved it already in 2020. So if you want to use that, like if people are using already, like I've seen, I think we're still like number three in terms of like TVS secured, like after sort of Ethereum and Celestia. Sorry, after Ethereum and Celestia. So like it's not a main product we push, and it's not going to be like it's already a done product. And candidly, it's very cheap that it's very hard for us to generate any meaningful, um, you know, like fees or that can justify where we are. So rather than doing that, like we're using that as a component in what we call a muff protocol that allows you to stake tokens from anywhere. Um, so like yeah, it's not a big push from our side. It's something that we built and kind of use in our internal infra, but also some of the rollups use it as well.
I think you just mentioned that the what is the now or the future vision of NUF protocol, like stake from anywhere. Before coming there, I just want to know another thing that the transition from near to eigenlayer. Like, what was the thought behind that? Like, why? Like, what eigenlayer enabled you, which near didn't, what couldn't possible in near, or what are the extra benefits which eigenlayer offered to the D and fast finality layer initially?
Yeah, I mean DA is like DA is completely separate product. Like it builds its own near. The fast finale there, obviously. So the way people did this, if you want to do a decentralized infrastructure that allows you to kind of um, move assets between different chains, traditionally people built chains. So I mean, you can see with like Particle L1, like all those folks that are like building chain abstraction, but also build a blockchain. We didn't want to do that. I think it takes a lot of time to ship. Building a blockchain is not easy. You have to kind of be like differentiated in a way, right? Like so, um, and coming from here, we're really not interested in building a chain. So we instead said, look, like I think there's a lot of cryptoeconomic security everywhere, not only on Ethereum, but Bitcoin and like, near Solana, everybody has like $1 billion of, more cryptoeconomic security. So why not just use that to bootstrap to make sure that people trust the kind of the fast finale there. So for that, like I would say we're very like in the intersection of sort of near and Eigenlayer, but like traditionally, like this is where we want to be. Like we think like Ethereum is very interesting, so is near. So we're playing in this kind of like this intersection of different blockchains where we think we have an edge, like that's different, like that allows us to kind of focus on to a couple of different problems that are interesting for us. And yeah, like I think it's like hard to say that we did the transition from near to EigenLayer, but more like we're kind of near folks in the EigenLayer ecosystem is a better kind of um, positioning for us, really.
Cool. I think another thing would be like, what are like the challenges you faced, like deploying on EigenLayer? The reason is like since I was talking with a few AWS builders, like they were saying they're like AWS is a new thing, and understanding a new protocol like EigenLayer, which has this taking risk and the slashing is also not enabled and everything. So like while you were like switching from like near to EigenLayer, like what are the challenges and what's the situation there? Like till how much the deployment is done with the eigen contracts and all the synchronization.
Yeah, I think like I mean, we're a very technical team, so I can't say that we've had that much trouble, like kind of figuring out how this works. Um, but I mean, look, like at the end of the day, it's like it's a very new concept. Last year we had like when we started building on EigenLayer near it was like 8, 9 AVSs maybe. Like there was Euro guys and like there's a bunch of like early ecosystem. But that was like when we look at now active development, like I think it's around 75 to 80 AVSs, and I'm hearing more and more that like people who are actually have existing infrastructure that centralized want to decentralize their stack, and the best way to kind of do that with that logic chain is obviously EigenLayer. So like we didn't the challenges of this is obviously like just like with new piece of technology everywhere is that, how does this work? Where do you go for help? That's already existed in 2021, 2022 with like smart contracts. I think like the same thing applies here. Is that, but I mean, at the end of the day, like you have somebody like Adara that's running DevRel on Eigen, like I think it's going to improve it over time, and like you've already like AWS service platforms like Authentic. I know there's an it right now. I've heard like one or two more that's like building similar goals. So I think like it is going to get easier. So with that, like I think when people say like 1,000 ABSs in the next year or so, like I believe it just because I saw the 10x growth before, and I think the Eigen ecosystem is still kind of growing that direction of like getting more people in. I think Sharam as a founder is great to kind of attract great builders just because of like being just an interesting academic, and like so it really speaks to the kind of the builder community out there.
Cool. I think that also gives us like a overview of the EigenLayer ecosystem in the current state and like people building onto it and who wants to build. I think now is the time for the main vision of like Nuffle Labs, which you are aiming currently. Like we have talked this, I think, before DevCon also mentioning the main target, and I have seen you, Yash, tweeting this a lot, that restake from any chain. That's what main like Nuffle Labs into it. Like before going into the intricacies, I have lots of questions around that. Like what led you to like focus on this vision, like restake from any chain?
Yeah, there's a couple of factors here. So the first one I already mentioned, which is saying that like if um the crypto is not just one chain. Like I think Ethereum is great to start with to do this vision of verifiable cloud. Um, but look, like I think we're starting to see this more and more everywhere, like Bitcoin, Solana, and other chains where people are want to kind of people already, Bitcoin is building the staking primitive, which is a different like through Babylon, but staking exists everywhere. So like exists on near Solana, there's like um, crazy amount of value being sort of like locked in those ecosystems. And just because you hold near and Solana shouldn't separate you from being able to contribute to cloud, the verifiable cloud, right? So that's how we started. We see that as a kind of a we saw that in our AVS that like people want to put near into it, and the UX of that is quite bad. Like you want to kind of bridge from near, you need to figure out a bridge. When you bridge to is there's a wrapped asset, and then you kind of like need to take that asset, find the eigen app, do all the bunch of stuff. And you've already lost like good amount of time, and people as we're like time is becoming more and more important. So we thought that's kind of number one. Number two is like obviously, there's like if you think about this as a bond market, like there's only one bond here, which is Ethereum. But how do we think about like other bonds like Near and Solana, and what's the pricing of these assets? And there's like a bit of a price discovery here. I know that there's a lot of people are not paying rewards, but for rewarding, it's going to be quite interesting. So like do you pay less? Do you pay more? Like you pay less per Bitcoin currently, and what if that's the case for near, and so like all of that. So and on the other side, like AVS is accumulated around like 5-6 billion nodes of cryptographic security, and a lot of those are like not have launched token that doesn't have an economic sort of economic plan yet. And for those folks, like it's very attractive to kind of like bundle some ETH with other assets to decrease their emissions or, pay less to the stakers, but increase sort of the assets and the number of ABSs. So that's kind of the thesis we built out. So like number one is like the UX. Number two, there's going to be a different price discovery for assets. And number three, that I just didn't mention, all these AVSs work with different ecosystems. Like on the L2 side, they work with Arbitrum, they work with Polygon. I mean, it's a sidechain, but still work with Linea, work with others. And some of them actually like have their own, like AVS, like Tria, have their own sort of have own roll up, and they just want to directly stake from that roll up, right? So it's a very like niche need. But one of the things I've learned as a founder over the last sort of 5-6 months is, you have to be very focused in a very little market and win that market and grow that market over time, rather than going after, like a large chain abstraction protocol or bridges or others that already got established. Because when you start getting deeper into the cross-chain landscape, there's 150, like maybe more products out there that people can use. And for you to thrive in that market where the competition is fierce, you have to be super focused on what you're building and kind of win that market. So it was a bit of like need and kind of positioning for us that kind of get us here. And the other thing was obviously like we were talking with EigenLayer. EigenLayer was super interested to kind of build this product with us, and we've been working with them for a while. And we said, why not? Let's build it together. While we were also using our own technology that we built over time. So that was kind of the main reasoning as to like why we kind of arrived here.
I think okay. I think the most important question will be what actually unlocks, but the restake from any chain by Nuffle unlocks more for both the users as well as the devs. I'll first want to know the user perspective. Basically, like currently, let's say we restake in various, like we can restake directly in EigenLayer contracts, or this like liquid restaking protocols, let's say Kelp, Swell, Puffer, and all this stuff. But like what is how we should visualize from a user perspective that restake from any chain by Nuffle unlocks there.
I mean, first, like users, I mean, there's like you have stake your near, you've got a stake ST near. What do you do with that? If you go to like some lending markets on near, that's like it's gonna give you like 0.01%, and that's like not attractive for a bunch of other folks. So you can actually give more than that and kind of win those users pretty easily. The other thing is, as I said, like maybe you have ETH or other assets, you have to bridge them. Like bridging is just tough. I don't like bridging. So like from a user perspective, you just come to one front end and stake. So that would be like a Nuffle front end at the beginning. But the vision here is that anybody can launch an LRT on that chain too. Like so you can go to, let's say, Arbitrum. You use Nuffle contracts to generate an LRT. That could be EtherFi, that could be Puffer. That doesn't really matter. And then you like kind of launch the LRT, and everything is done for you on the infrastructure side. So the users of just like it's very simple, right? Like you have assets that don't earn anything. You can earn more. You can even earn Eigen, and then you can also do things like like just bunch of LRTs can come in and launch on these chains. So I haven't done that much work on the LRT side, but there's it's either that Nuffle will become the first LRT, or we work with somebody like EtherFi or big LRT that kind of like can launch. I know there's been kind of like, for example, brands already have started to kind of expand to Solana. Like I think that we're gonna see that more and more as the market matures.
So like one thing which I was getting confused or puzzled by, like comparing, if I compare let's say Nuffle with let's say the Solana restaking protocol or the Bitcoin restaking protocol, what's the difference there? Like if you can say that, like from a
They don't
technical
access to
perspective.
they do not access to EigenLayer's demand, which is the largest restaking protocol platform. So here's like the most important thing. The most important thing is, like this is siloed ecosystem. Right? We've already seen this with L1s. Like you launch a new L1, you kind of need to bootstrap your own ecosystem. So a lot of people just mint supply, but then demand just doesn't come. For demand to come, what foundations do is, they go out and they try to find applications, right? But It's the other way of thinking, where I have all these assets. I know there's a large restaking platform forming, which is EigenLayer. As this restaker, I have access to the EigenLayer demand side, which is 80 AVSs versus a Solana AVS ecosystem, which is 3 AVSs. So it gives you a large access. So if you have the option, if somebody of one of the AVSs are paying you from the EigenLayer side and nobody's paying you on the Solana restaking platform, you're going to switch your assets to whoever gives you more money, right? So that's like very game theoretical thinking. Yeah, like it's different, right? Because it's not a restake. Like Ruffle is not a restake platform. It is almost like expansion of EigenLayer outside of Ethereum. And candidly, like it's also we're thinking something like if we're gonna do the LRT launch LRT bundles, we're probably gonna launch that on Ethereum too, because we already have the same infra everywhere. So it would be like something like a mellow finance for EigenLayer.
So like if I take one thing out of what you said, like basically Nuffle is taking EigenLayer from Ethereum to all other chains. Is it what it is?
Yeah,
Cool.
yeah. So that's one of the things we use, like EigenLayer. EigenLayer is going multi-chain with Nuffle. Like we use the infra, so we're the infra provider for that. But also we are almost like the DeFi provider too in the future, because you can create like the LRT bundles. So that's where things are going pretty much.
Yeah, like basically like if you say one thing what Nuffle does, it's like taking EigenLayer multi-chain. It's something like that, right? Uh,
Yeah.
One thing I just want to know your thoughts on this. There, like I now I got the difference of with the other protocols, but I just want to know your thoughts. How like let's say Nuffle is different from let's say Karak or Symbiotic. If I compare that, I think if you can portray that thing.
They don't have the demand side. That goes back to the same thing. It's the like Karak is different, right? Karak has its own like Symbiotic has its own like ETH L1 restaking platform, right? So but for us, it's like it's different. So it is using EigenLayer as a settlement layer, right? So it's almost like I would say like layer two on. It's not a layer two, but it is like settles on EigenLayer. So it uses like EigenLayer's demand side, uses EigenLayer's like accounting side, uses like EigenLayer's like all these mechanisms. The only thing is like you have EigenLayer as the main court, and then you have different chains that you kind of lock assets and mint something like it's not even like wrapped. It's more like a share that goes to EigenLayer's like contracts, versus Karak and Symbiotic are different restaking platforms, versus Nuffle is extending EigenLayer, has access to the demand side that EigenLayer has.
Cool. All right. I think it is pretty interesting. Okay. So like apart from that, there will be like one like about the risk factors. Let's say of Nuffle. Like if you are taking Aguilar multi-chain, I think the risk factors also goes up in that criteria. Like I know like slashing isn't enabled currently, but let's say when slashing is enabled, if we let's say consider that for a moment, what are the like huge challenges this Nuffle vision must tackle so that the user's fund or the entire protocol is not at risk?
Yeah. So from number one, like it's basically staking. So staking is just locking an asset in one chain, an Nuffle contract, and then releasing that, like basically releasing a share or a token that can go to that goes to Ethereum L1, and it's directly enshrined into EigenLayer's contract. So that's number two is like rewards. So how do you deal with rewards? Is you can do this in two ways. So we're building both, but you can either give your rewards on Ethereum L1 and use our infra to bridge them to the L2 and L1, and then you can release the rewards there using our infra, or you hold your asset in the L2 because you minted them already there. That's the canonical representation of the asset. You get a message from EigenLayer and you release that reward. So those are already covered. I think those are we already have those in testnet. Number three, slashing is a bit harder. So as for not from an implementation perspective, and sure, I'm said the same thing like when you just on the roll up thing, is that it is programmatic. We're just saying, I'm going to lose 5% if I do something wrong. It's pretty simple. But how do you kind of Ethereum, like EigenLayer is the judge pretty much. So you can use like something like boundless to say that slash this asset on the other chain. So it is sort of like, again, message passing. It's the riskier is like, I mean, just using different blockchains, but already users there are taking that risk, right? So they already are comfortable taking that risk in that risk paradigm. So gives you a bit of like a larger spectrum, which is quite interesting.
Another thing is which I asked, I think, few minutes back is the users in the dev perspective. We just got a little bit hang of what users can do. I want to know what this multi-chain thesis of eigenlayers offers more to dev. Like, what are you envisioning? Like, what are the new use cases which can be built, which Nuffle is doing?
For devs, I mean, like it allows you to create LRTs on different chains. So that's number one. You can create an LRT from any other chain. Number two is like the multi-chain vision is almost like there's a lot of components on EigenLayer that could be made cheaper outside of Ethereum that doesn't require the asset itself. So things like, I mean, Restore is like started doing this where you can write here verifier logic, which essentially means um, I have done certain off-chain work somewhere, and I'm always pushing that to Ethereum. Which when Ethereum gets expensive, my costs go up, and I want it to be built outside, right? Like build on Near, build on somewhere that's quite friendly for me as a developer, but and I don't have to pay that much. So, um, developer side is like still shaping. I would say staker side is most of like the side we're caring about right now. But I think in the multi-chain vision of EigenLayer is like being able to do all these operations quite cheap elsewhere is very interesting, and a lot of folks could be like coming from different ecosystems, and others are interested in, you know, interested in that.
Cool. I think on to the next question. Just basically where we at the roadmap of Nuffle, and like where when can we expect a test net where the users and the devs can interact with?
Yeah, so things are gonna come in like so. We're doing a very important announcement December 17th, where we're working with one of the biggest infra providers in the space, and they're exploring really cool things in the multi-chain restaking landscape, which we're excited about. So that's gonna come like in December, and after that, we'll basically start like um, sort of going Q1 testnet with some of the L2s. So like it's Arbitrum, like maybe Linea and others that we can launch on test nets, try and ensure that everything's working, and go with audits in Q1. And Q2 is pretty much going to be mainnet, starting with Arbitrum, Linea, and also doing some work on the Near and Solana side, because we're working with somebody on Solana side that's exploring an ABS. So we're quite excited to get that to market. Yeah, so if you're like interested in building, I wouldn't say this is not a dev product. This is more like if you have an infrastructure that you are currently centralized, like a bridge or an Oracle, and you're kind of working not only on Ethereum but also on other ecosystems, Nuffle is a perfect fit. So if you have a token that's like live across different chains, staking and restaking from those chains is very important. So we're exploring that with more and more kind of B2B approach, where helping folks to launch AVSs and use those assets in different chains. So if you're interested in that, reach out to me. I'm pretty active on Twitter. Yeah, like I always check my DMs and so forth.
Cool. I think that sums up. I think it gives a very brief overview of what Nuffle is doing. I think before wrapping up, I'll just want to do a quick rapid fire kind of activity. Like just I'll ask you three questions and you have to understand, like answer them in under a minute. And we'll just wrap up after that. It will be kind of same questions what we discussed, but we just have to complete in 1 minute. So the first question is, what's Nuffle's vision?
Nuffle's vision is that verifiable cloud could be built on any chain. Um, and this starts with obviously allowing stakers to stake from anywhere, uh, but it goes way beyond building all the functionality that EigenLayer is able to do today on any chain that you could think of. It could be L1 and L2. By that, also improve the developer experience in the future, where you can also use the tools that other chains have provided since Ethereum has started. So the thinking is that we think that it coming from Ethereum, verifiable cloud shouldn't be just limited to Ethereum, but all chains.
Cool. Second question is we discussed this, but I want to ask you again. Like Nuffle versus Symbiotic versus Karak. How would you differentiate?
So the difference between a new restaking platform and Nuffle is that a new restaking platform silos the restake ecosystem. So they'll have to build their own ABS ecosystem. They'll have to go to a different chain, look for different ABSs. For us, we already work with one of the largest restaking platform, which is EigenLayer, that are looking for alternative assets and bring them to EigenLayer. So we're more of extension of EigenLayer outside of Ethereum L1 than a different restaking platform.
Cool. I think last one question, not technical, a little fun question. Like, what's the branding secret between Nuffle Waffle? Like, what's the reason to choose Waffle behind the Nuffle Labs?
Yeah, branding is something we cared about when we started Nuffle in June. The reason for that was, if you look at a lot of different infra projects and crypto projects, they all use this like spacey material and like very futuristic look. And, we wanted to differentiate when people see the branding. So we like this like very fluffy and kind of like fun, but serious branding. Waffle thing came from, actually it was Modular Summit last year where Erica, one of our kind of close friends, is like, why don't we call this like if we're gonna serve waffles, why don't we just call it like Nuffle Waffle? And kind of it was just like blow up and in socials, a lot of people were kind of loving it, and we were like, oh, this is something that we should probably use as a kind of part of our branding.
Cool. I think that sums up our discussion. I like want you to like come again in future and like as you were saying in more like things are coming up. I think I saw that tweet also last day you put more news, special news are coming from Nuffle community and everything. I like to invite you during the launch and we can just run around where all things can come up and like looking forward to host you more. Yep.
Works.
Thanks for coming. Yep.
Thanks.